Okay, so I'm on my 10-day countdown to, under the effective order of the Court of Appeal, to publicly beg for money to continue my cases that I've done for the last year against the mass theft of all of Auckland's public assets in order to build a lot of housing that we don't have a population forecasted for to meet. So there's a new population arriving in the city that has no explanation, that we're turning all of our public land into housing for to meet the demand of, even though it doesn't fit with a Statistics New Zealand forecast or any rational reason the population might increase. So we're expecting a massive population boom of 1,600 new people every week for the per week every week for the till 2030. It's a lot of people that require all of our public land to be divested. We lose all the money, all the public wealth, and we lose all the use, all the car parks, marinas, golf courses, open spaces, everything gone, completely divested. So that case against Mayor Goff that I've been in court for a year, and also the mass poisoning of our entire ecosystem by his successor, Ardern, as Labour leader, in the Labour cult of massive divestment in order to achieve a global government structural reform that starts with a zero carbon legislation, but it ends with a crashed economy and a crashed currency, because we are transferring to the global currency of carbon, and we'll be the first to do it, according to Hillary Clinton's little announcement that we're the model for the world for this program when she was here recently. But that's not the point. So, you know, apart from being forced to prostitute myself for money in order to continue my legal cases, in order to access justice in New Zealand, because unless you're rich in New Zealand, you don't have access to justice. And not only do you not have access to justice, you're forced to like beg and prostitute yourself for money in order to get access to justice. And obviously that really is a violation of my privacy, because obviously I have to then declare to everyone in the country and the world that I have no money to afford the legal fees to take a case which is a matter of public interest, although the court have ordered that it's not a matter of public interest. Apparently the mass divestment of all our land and the mass poisoning of our entire ecosystem is not a matter of public interest. So your children are being poisoned by monofluorescent predecessor and the world's most lethal torture poison chemicals been dumped en masse in our watersheds. Those watersheds in the bush, they first start by torturing animals for prolonged periods of time. So, you know, 80 hours, 90 hours of agonizing terror for each of these animals. All our wildlife dying indiscriminately, from the insects to the bats to the birds to the bees to the pigs and deer and goats and cattle, and you know, it's just disgusting. It's mass torture of animals. So you have to be a Satanist to do that to begin with, let's face it. No one, you know, you wouldn't torture one animal like that, let alone thousands across the bush. And where are all our insects going? Oh, well, Ardern's poisoning them to death with her killer cabal government, but you know, let's move on. So then that water restructures the deadly killer fluorocitrate molecule that ERMA, the EPA, admit is the degradation product, is the poisonous part of the chemical. So 1080 biodegrades. You can't test for it anymore. It's gone. It's metabolized into other degradation products. Fluoromethane is one of them. God, that sounds dangerous. Fluoromethane is a 1080 version of methane. I mean, methane's one of the most lethal gases in the world, and then you like stick that with 1080 lethal poison. I mean, Jesus. Sounds like you're artificially inflicting climate change, personally. I mean, if you actually study fluoromethane, but no studies have been done on fluoromethane, so we don't know, but I'm pretty sure there'd be some measurements of seriously lethal, poisonous methane that is like slightly elevated by 1080 floating around, but we don't test for that. We just let that go because it's a giant experiment on our population to kill everyone. Another fluoro amino acid that forms into a complex protein, which I swear to God, if it was tested, would be proven to be the cause of mad cow disease, and that is what, you know, then can impregnate the entire food system basically as well. It's and no studies have been done on that. So. But we know from the studies done on the fluorocitrate molecule that it stays whole and it travels through the food and water supply, it irrigates our food, you wash in it, your skin can't absorb the water, but it can absorb the chemicals in the water. We have the highest rate of skin cancer in the world, so do Australia, so do Israel. Guess who imported 1080 for the last, 50, 60 years? Israel, New Zealand and Australia. Highest rate of skin cancers, you know. couple the 1080 effect in your skin with a little bit of dodgy sunscreen, and voila, skin cancer. It's not the sun. Okay, and so I digress a little bit, but clearly the mass poisoning of our ecosystem in order to artificially inflict a sixth extinction, like a mass die out of all our wildlife, and then they're mass slaughtering the rest of the wildlife that they can't poison, like the goats the tara are too clever to eat the poison. They can smell it, or they can sense the fucking demoned politicians that are trying to kill them, and so they mass slaughtering them by sniper fire based on bogus population figures that allow them to kill them all because they're massively exaggerating the population of the tara, and actually totally defies science, because the science says that and especially in an ecosystem like that, which is completely like barren, they're literally trying to protect tussock. It's ridiculous. You don't kill living sentient beings for tussock. It's insane. But anyway, the reason it's completely barren is because it actually doesn't have enough stock on it. The latest science, or the worldwide proven science, is that the only way to stop that sort of desertification of land is to increase the stock and manage their rotations so that they're fertilizing the land, breaking up the soil, breaking down the grass, and allowing the soil to retain the water. So, you could completely revive all of that land to a lush oasis if you had like 5 times the level of tar population on there. That's like proven fact. And our totally intellectually deficient green communist fake environmental government mass slaughtering all the wildlife anyway, and mass poisoning all the wildlife. But anyway, let's get to the point. That travels down the water system and we drink it and we eat it across all our food. And the pathogens, the deadly pathogens that are breaking down all our food at the moment, the fact that our rivers and lakes and streams can't be swum in, those chemicals in those rivers and streams travel right into the ocean. The water might evaporate into rain, but the chemicals travel past the barrier. The chemicals will go right into the ocean, poisoning all the ocean food. I bought like 2 products because I've had serious attacks doing this case, like EMF pulses to my brain that bruise and swell my brain, and is so difficult to recover from. It's just unbelievable and unbearable experience. But and then neurotoxin poisoning. And let's remember 1080 is a neurotoxin poison. So that will be causing massive brain retardation in New Zealand, and it chemically alters your brain. So I would expect that our depression statistics, especially amongst farmers, because they're drinking the water that's just been poisoned by 1080 in the rural areas deliberately, I would expect the depression is absolutely direct relationship to the Ardern dumping masses of thousands of tons of the world's most lethal neurotoxin into our water. But it's also a sterility toxin, so watch all the media that says our reproductive organs are no longer working. That's because most people are starting to get cancer in them because of this 1080 consumption. But we are becoming infertile. This is the age of infertility. It's deliberately inflicted. This is Prince Philip of the royal family. This is arguably his agenda from the start. Since the Queen came to reign, within 1 year they were dumping 1080 poison from the sky on Māori tribes up north. So, and then Helen Clark, the lethal, deadly killer, came into power and started implementing the New World Order. Let's go back to this thing that I have to beg for money. So I have to violate my privacy and tell you all that I have no money. And that's because there's 2 reasons for that. One, the last 10 years for me have been a life of service. I have worked all around the world trying to stop their destructions, trying to stop massive industrial destruction. I did a 3-year massive development in New Zealand to stop the harmful farming practices by creating a premium for organic pure food, where we could be the highest quality food source in the world. New Zealand could be. My business was infiltrated by a bunch of people in the sustainability cabal with this New World Order group. People like Suzanne Snively, who runs Transparency New Zealand. What a fucking joke. I've never heard something so funny. New Zealand, transparent. We would be the most lethal mafia, well-organised, well-entrenched divestment mafia in the fucking world, honestly. and it's taken since 22 of being attacked by them for me to understand this. So you can't understand how sick New Zealand is until you've experienced the way they operate over and over again. They basically divest anyone that's a threat to their divestment strategy. Anyone trying to do anything incredibly positive to transform the industry is subject to attack. To transform, I think, probably any industry in a way that stops the poisoning. If you're a threat to their poisoning program, you're subject to attack. I know, because when I did my development, I got signed up finance of 120 million with the ANZ Bank, and I kept it so silent. I remember NBR did an article on it, which was just scathing, trying to attack me at the time, and because it was a big secret that I was doing this development. 120 million from the ANZ, 50 million from Graham Hart, and a huge amount of money signed up internationally that got stuck in a central bank transfer and it didn't arrive. But in very quick succession, it was sabotage, because in very quick succession, my whole family was sabotaged. Michael Fay, who privatised our banking and our rail system in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, and was one of the ones who started this divestment program. It was complete traitory. He was kept out of the country for 15 years. When Parliament used to be vaguely honest, they used to call for his arrest and trial for mass theft off the New Zealand public. But he divested, he privatised our rail and banking industry. Well, he was when the 2008 crash happened, all the farmers became vulnerable, obviously, all across the country. You could have sold up almost all of them. And I was doing this development and I succeeded. I signed up the 3 financing contracts and just had to wait. Now, that was to turn New Zealand into a premium organic food supply. And it would have been one of the top 10 capitalised businesses in the country. So it was quite a force to be reckoned with. And so someone made a phone call and had my money stopped in a central bank transfer, my international money. And then within quick succession, Michael Fay worked with Michael Stiasny to buy up all my parents' land, when, again, they could have sold up all the farmers in the country after the 2008 crash. Everyone was vulnerable, but they totally divested my family. Then my mum and dad were living in my apartment for a while, so I weren't earning any rent on it. I was overseas. And then TVNZ is a really long story for me, but they were doing I understand it was TVNZ documentary. It might have been something else, but it was, who's that blonde-haired, curly haired celebrity, blonde hair, she's a real estate agent now. Sally Ridge and her partner Wayne moved into my apartment, my beautiful penthouse apartment in Ponsonby. Didn't pay their rent for I had a 5-month delay on my rent. Just didn't pay their rent. So I couldn't pay my rent. So then before I knew it, they were selling up my house because I had tenants who weren't paying the rent. The rent serviced the mortgage. It's quite simple. If Sally Ridge paid her fucking rent, I would have my house right now. Anyway, I just spent all this money to do up the house before they moved in. They left it fucking disgusting, ruined walls, and it was just terrible. Bridget Saunders went and cleaned it because I was overseas for me. She used to write for the Sunday Herald, and she went and cleaned it for me, and she sent all these photos to me. It was this big discussion about how bigger pigs they were for destroying my apartment. But before I knew it, I was sold up. But it was weird because I'd had it on the market with Bailey's for the whole period that Sally Ridge wasn't paying her rent with Wayne, and Bailey's, and they wouldn't let the agent in. They wouldn't let the agent into the apartment to see it. So these two are real estate agents now. They fucked up my apartment. They didn't pay their rent, and they wouldn't let the agent in for months. 5 months delay. Finally, when Bailey's could get in, I was already sold out, even though I had buyers there wanting to buy it. And then within a month I presented to the OA the buyer, which my apartment was worth 1.5 million at the time. I was young and successful. I had money. I was completely destroyed by these people, and was worth 1.5 million at the time. And then I got this offer for I was going to get an offer for it 1.24 million, and then they found out that the OA had put a caveat on my house, so then the offer dropped to 1.16 million. Okay, now that covered the mortgage, I had no debt. I was super financially behaved, so I had no debt, and it covered the mortgage and it covered the body corporate fees, and it should have cleared me. It was 1.16 million, and I would have walked away with a serious whack of equity. I forget, at least 130,000 of equity out of my house sale, even though it was like well below value, deliberately divested by the OA, putting a caveat on, which they didn't need to do. And immediately, you know, it's a joke. I was completely sabotaged after Michael faced stealing all my family land with Michael Stiesny, two big gangsters. And then, so I was completely sabotaged, and the OA wouldn't accept the 1.16 million offer from this buyer. And then within 10 days, they came back really excited saying, oh, we've got a buyer. They didn't disclose it was the same buyer. I found that out when I came back to New Zealand at 1 million. Like, they lost my equity. It was a deliberate divestment. They deliberately wouldn't accept the sale because it rendered me equity, and I walked away with money and still empowered and everything intact within a month of them divesting me after Sally Ridge not paying her rent. So, like, I was completely set up. And I go back to this TVNZ thing because TVNZ harassed me from the age of 22. I did this amazing development to help young designers. It was a positive documentary, and I got Neil Kahn at NZONet to give me the funding for it, and Irene Gardner at TVNZ approved it. And they filmed in my company for a year, and then they completely told lies, and they rendered it like it was supposed to be this positive documentary, and it wasn't supposed to be on me at all. I was kind of like background. I organised it all. It was my company. It was my money. But I was background. They made it on me. They cut it to be on me. I had no idea it was coming. And they completely falsified the facts right through it. They made me look like, they wanted to make me look like the Devil Wears Prada lady, you know, like the bitch who ran the company. And they did a good job too, even though I really wasn't like that. And I probably am now. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. But so funny. And TVNZ just destroyed me, and I didn't understand it at the time. Well, then I learned about Operation Mockingbird, and I've since looked. TVNZ had another go at me this year when I suggested that we have a second body corporate reserve bank of the Reserve Bank appointed so that New Zealand money can be extended to meet the public needs. And so, you know, I mean, that's really rational because our money supply is deliberately restricted at the moment. It's to divest and demoralise the population. If our money supply was extended to meet the human potential, considering that money used to be simply a product of the need for real goods, the exchange of real goods and services. If you had milk and I had grapes and someone else had apples and we'd all exchange that, then we started writing IOUs and exchanging those instead of real goods. You know, if we didn't want to exchange an apple for a grape, we'd exchange an apple for an IOU. And so money was simply a reflection of our capacity to create and contribute, our capacity to trade. And that's what it should be. It should meet the supply of money should meet the human potential to meaningfully contribute to society, to trade, to participate, to exchange goods or services, and it doesn't. It's completely restricted. What that means is that we are restricted as people. Our human potential is restricted. We can't exchange goods. Now, under the Reserve Bank Act, for a secondary monetary policy under Section 12, because the monetary policy at the moment just says that they must bet this international body corporate who totally steal our money and restrain our money must balance prices. Well, obviously they're completely failing at that because Ardern's crashing our economy deliberately by upping the price on all our key commodities, fuel, sugar, all our food. Environment costs will happen because of her climate change tax on the farmers, so our food will become unaffordable and poisoned at the same time, and we're literally going to starve. We're on that trajectory of starvation and economic crash thanks to Ardern. It's deliberate. These people are divesting the country. It's structural reform. They want a global government. They're not working for us. They're not working for the country. They're working for a global government. But anyway, the point is that we need a second jurisdiction for a second body corporate, monetary policy where money is supplied to meet the public needs. We need a second jurisdiction. So I launched a referendum, citizens-initiated referendum, to section off a second jurisdiction. I just chose the North Shore because that's where I ran for elections last year. And fake elections, the fake set-up rigged elections where I was incarcerated by a state employee at the DHB, basically harassing my dogs and threatening my dogs. I wasn't able to leave the house, so my plan to run for Prime Minister was sabotaged because I was literally harassed and kept incarcerated in my house and then thrown out of my house against all possible laws, under heavy surveillance. I was told by the state paid worker who harassed me that everything I said in the house was recorded. Oh my God, great. State harassment whilst under state surveillance. Oh, that's great. Thanks. So it's only increased since then, trust me. So I couldn't run for Prime Minister, but I did do a last minute dash 1 month campaign for, running for MP just for fun, just to see how rigged it was and how dumb the MPs were. Oh my God. Anyway, sorry to the nice MPs who are not so smart. Like Maggie Berry. Oh my God. To joke. Like I couldn't understand Maggie Berry's obsession with killing all the rodents. That's all she could talk about. Killing the rodents and getting the old people online. Do you know why? Because there is a model. Sorry, this is going to freak people out. There's a model to kill old people in this country. They're telling people they've got high cholesterol when they don't. They're dosing them with statin pills, which basically sends them into fucking states of dementia. And they are, what do you call it? They want to get all the old people online. Well, only 4% of the old people online because they restrict the economy, so they restrict the money supply, so the pensions don't even cover the old people's phone, power, and food. Like, they have to choose to starve or freeze. One of them, basically. But Maggie Berry was obsessed with killing all the pests and rodents, like killing everything, basically. We know now by 1080 and Britifcum killing the humans. And freaky metaphor for a gardener, and killing all the old people by putting internet in their house because of the EMF frequencies. The EMF frequency technology that can come through your computer and can come through your phone now is terrifying. Trust me. I had an EMF burst through my phone that bruised my brain and enlarged my brain for a month. I thought I was going to fucking die. I stayed off the phone after that. I had to spend a day on the phone, like ringing the Court of Appeal, ringing other people. I was like, had literally a tin pot over the phone and like towels and like trying to keep away from the frequency. By the end of the day, it wasn't so bad. It wasn't like the burst that had come up my headphones and like literally fucking cooked my brain in one big zap the first time, but it was still the same effect. Not as bad, and it went away, but it was bad. Wait, helicopter coming. Just have to go into my safe space with the helicopter coming. Oh my God. So that's another problem that I have. So whenever I leave the house, followed by helicopters flying around my house all the time, which unfortunately means that unless I run away from them, it sounds really fucked up. I know, it sounds crazy, but it's what I'm literally living with to do these cases. So I'm just going to be honest, because I kind of feel like I'm recording my obituary anyway, because if I keep getting EMF attacks and the neuropoisoning that I suffered the last about 20 days now probably, or heading towards that, then I'm gonna lose, I'll be lights out, seriously. I've had some miracle cures that most people wouldn't have access to, that have helped me sort of survive it, but it's not easy, mate. So my brain still works, complete function of my brain, my mind inside my brain, but it's attacking my actual brain where anyway, boring. So let's go back to my fantastic story before my near-death experiences in this communist state divestment country that Helen Clark, the evil bitch, turned into the New World Order to divest this country for one world government. And I don't know how many murders have gone on since then and how many harassments and divestments and deliberate sabotages of people's lives, but it's fucking epic. That's why I laughed at Suzanne Snively, little Snively. She's like running Transparency New Zealand, which is like the biggest fucking fraud in the history of the world. Anyway, okay, chose the North Shore for the second jurisdiction because otherwise you need the monetary policy approved by the Governor General, which needs to be approved by the Queen, and since the Queen's been dropping poison on us since 1955, I'm not super confident that the Queen wants us to have access to money. I expect the demoralisation strategy was, the poison especially targeted the Māori tribes, and I just wonder, post-colonialism, they must manage the people who they divested. They must deliberately manage the people who they divested. Wait, I'm just gonna shut the door. Where was I? Okay, so under Section 12, you would need the Queen to approve the monetary policy change. She's not going to do that. So what I suggested was that we have a second jurisdiction so that we can have a monetary policy change to have money extended to meet the public needs, so that we are not divested of all our public land assets as a city, and so that we're not not divested of our public land assets, and so that we can remedy the farms and the water and the environment that Ardern and her cabal are mass poisoning at the moment. It's just so revolting, and it's just a horrific crime. It's poisoning children, torturing children and animals. Think about what kind of person in their mind can poison, torture humans and animals. And like, I sent the Crown's response to the International Criminal Court yesterday, and I was like, these people are not right in the mind, you know. I mean, they're defending the mass poisoning with a torture poison, neurotoxin, reproductive agent, heart toxin, killer, deadly chemical that their own documents say transforms into derogation products that kill and stay whole and travel into the food and water system and kill our people, and they're defending that. So that's our Crown, our Solicitor General, our Crown Law Office. So the system is completely rigged. But I mean, so, you know, so I went on to the that story because of TVNZ, because when I was 22, I did that massive development, really positive documentary, and TVNZ completely divested me, and it was all dishonest. Like, it was just so dishonest what they did, and I really fought to stop it going to air, and because they edited it at the last minute in order to replace a documentary for Edmund Hillary that hadn't been made in time. So they said they were supposed to do a 6-part series the next year, and I was supposed to be a co-editor, but they completely screwed me. I remember writing to Parliament at the time complaining. Little did I know that Helen Clark was running the New World Order divestment cabal at the Parliament with our stolen Parliament, so, you know, that was pointless. But they did edit a little bit, but it was still bad. And then they continued to attack me, and I didn't know why. I was such a earnest, honest, hardworking, like, you know, visionary young person, and just believed the world could be perfect and everything. You know, I don't know. I just was such a positive person. I mean, I still am, but I'm very realistic now. But I remember Maurice Williamson came, and he watched one of the stories that they did on me, and he called the 3 complainants 3 little pigs, and he went to TVNZ, the chairman, the CEO, the chairman, and he demanded that they stopped harassing me for no reason. I was just television fodder, and they did, finally. And he said that if you harass her again, I'll take you off air for a day. Well, this year they harassed me again, and when I did my my citizens-initiated referendum to promote the fact that we can take back control of our money supply, and they harassed me again, and I've made a Broadcasting Standards Authority a complaint. But if Maurice Williamson was true to his word, TVNZ would be taken off air for a day for what they did, for that article, the story that they did. It was just such deliberate misrepresentation of what I was promoting, which is the fact that one of our most underrated human rights is our ability for new generations to recreate our system, rewrite our rules, redecide the way our quality of life, the way that we live. And that is being removed from us at the moment. We're losing our freedoms, we're losing everything, because our system is run by a very corrupt group of politicians and state heads, you know, and the Crown obviously support it, you know. So at the end of the day, I don't know, I'd love to know how many other people suffered what I've suffered, although I think I've been like pretty heavily targeted. Why? It's a mystery. But anyway, if I go back to the original point, I was explaining, you know, basically that I have to raise money for these cases to continue. And I guess, you know, it's difficult for me because A, it's a violation of my privacy, B, I have to prostitute myself for money, C, it's a really dangerous environment online for me. I was significantly harassed last year when I was imprisoned in my house still trying to launch my election campaign, and, you know, a lot of sexism and misogyny, but just like viciously harassed. And I thought at the time, it's like people are being paid to do it. It's like, you know, but I wasn't quite aware of how criminally gripped this country was at the time. So I was like, maybe people are just really sick, like unkind, unpleasant, unnice. Didn't really understand. Now I understand, because when I started these cases, I got viciously harassed online, when I tried to take a legal case to remedy the fact that the state had deliberately divested me of all my equity and my house after being set up by this celebrity TVNZ related person who, after many years of being divested by TVNZ and then divested again by Astoria TVNZ this year, discredited again. And, of course it's really harmful for my family. I mean, I'm used to it now, but it's really difficult when the state organisations constantly harass and divest you. For everyone around you, But I was just, I realised when I started these cases, I tried to take that case to remedy my situation, and instead of the OA defending it in court, they set Meredith Connell on me, who are like the bulldog of defending the crimes of the government and the local government and the national government. And I just experienced Meredith Connell in court because I'd been fighting them against the multi-billion dollar divestment of all of our public land. And they hadn't defended the crime. They just personally attacked me, and their whole defence was constantly to attack me, and try and discredit me, and to try and divest my support, and sabotage my reputation. So it wasn't about defending the mass divestment of the public land. It was about attacking me because they're a fucking mafia. So when Meredith Connell took my case, and I realised I was in a court system which had consistently demonstrated corruption to me, the judiciary to my experience so far is just so deadly corrupt. It's just disgusting. There's no concept of justice at all, which includes this decision that I must publicly prostitute myself for money to continue this case, that there's no access to money when you don't have money. So you only have access to money if you're part of the mafia in New Zealand with money and power, and most of those people are seemingly trying to divest the country right now with poison and theft. So, that's a really pointless justice system. I don't know why we pay taxes for it. But also so I was going to a justice system, and then the nation's bulldog, AI-driven Meredith Connell legal fucking representative against me, ready to attack me personally again on a case that was really emotional for me because it was about the mass divestment of my life by the New Zealand state. I just went... And I cancelled the case. I think I wrote a minute that said the justice system is a fraud and I don't believe in it, so please cancel my case. Voila. God, and I also tried to take a legal case against the harassment that I experienced by this state-paid worker. Oh my God, it was like sexually violating as well. It was just so disgusting, so perverted, so relentless. And again, I just got divested at every court. It was just amazing, completely complicit in enabling the continuation of the harassment. So the state is sick. Our New Zealand state is fucking sick. Anyway, I've had a lifetime in this country. I lived in exile for many years, just never wanting to be here because it was just, I didn't understand. But now I understand the crime that's occurring. I understand, and I'm grateful because if it hadn't have all happened, I never would have gone down this path to defend major ecosystems and defend those who are being attacked and most vulnerable. Because I had a really successful life in business, and as in my bubble, as I'm sure a lot of people are, just happy earning their money and doing their thing. It's not until you're sort of forced down that path and then you look back, understanding the crime that's going on, look back with perspective and go, wow, this is a really scary country. Anyway, so prostituting myself for money, please donate to my case. Otherwise, if I don't have the money by the 21st to the court, then the cases are cancelled, and they are cases to stop the mass poisoning of your children and your families, the mass divestment of our sovereignty, our currency, our democracy, capitalism, everything. These people plan a system where you don't own property. They are attacking with weather, they're attacking with EMF frequency. The 5G installations will cook your brain if they want you to, if they're a disruptor, like they consider me. I was told that by Auckland University. I tried to go to Auckland University. I was actually shut out because I'm a disruptor. I was told to go to Harvard and do an online course for disruptor people. Oh my God. Well, they're going to deal with you with EMF frequencies by cooking your brain like they've been doing to me. It's fucking terrifying. It's so painful. I mean, it's the weirdest kind of pain. It's like your brain is bruised and enlarged and swelling and you kind of trip over your words and stuff, but your mind's completely functioning. You just have been physically attacked. And there's no remedy for it except healing, and that's their capability now. Whether warfare, chemical warfare, and electromagnetic frequency warfare. It is a terrifying, terrifying country, and they are planning massive, unimaginable structural reform in the next 10 years unless they're stopped. Now, part of the reason why I persevere in the New Zealand courts is because on July 23rd, the International Criminal Court accepted this case for review, and if it transitions to prosecution, then Ardern and the Queen and Govenor Reddy are all on the block for mass poisoning our country, and all those people around you who have dropped dead from cancers and especially reproductive organ cancers like breast and ovarian cancer, depressions, motor neuron disease, heart attacks, strokes, all this stuff can be caused by 1080, and we've got an epidemic of all of it, and it's all 1080s in our water. Remember, it breaks into derogation products that travel through your food and water system that are killer molecules. You consume them, they start attacking your cells and mutating your cells, which triggers then the cancer. So they themselves aren't necessarily carcinogenic, although we don't have tests to prove that. There's zero daily acceptable intake of these chemicals. So that's the World Health Organization, and yet we've got this deadly health system that sets an acceptable daily limit against the very clear fact that it's a killer molecule that literally kills you, and it's a silent deadly killer because it's tasteless, odorless, colorless. You can't see it, you just consume it and you start dying, and you don't even know that you've had it. You just get sick. Pneumonia is the new epidemic promoted for this summer because they've just dumped 1080 in your water, and the symptoms when you get poisoned are like pneumonia. It's just shocking. These people are so criminal. But anyway, that's my update basically. Like, doing these cases and asking for finance for these cases. I mean, I've done these cases around the world for the last 10 years. Well, 3 years was my development to remedy the New Zealand's poisoning of our ecosystem. So I've come full circle back to stopping the poisoning of New Zealand's ecosystem, that I got heavily financed for and then sabotaged. And what I realise is that when people finance cases like this, they take a risk. They literally have to feel like God protects them and they owe God a favour to finance this case. And they've got nothing to lose. Because, the target on your back when you get involved in a case like this is immense. How many people who have been experts against this poisoning have died of quick cancers, I mean, if they keep attacking my brain, I'm going to get some sort of brain cancer. It's just fucked up. It's like deliberate assassination, slow patient assassination. And it's definitely state related. This is Ardern taking out her competition, no? Because it's like, well, not competition, because there's no competition in this system because it's not genuine, I mean, I distributed a promotion to run for Prime Minister as a young woman running for Prime Minister several months before she was promoted, to a bunch of people like Philip Mills and Rob Campbell and all those kind of guys who were her key promoters. So they went, oh, that's a great plan, Miriam, young woman to run for Prime Minister. We'll just oust the other guy and stick Ardern in. It was definitely my plan. It's in writing. It's registered with different, even like film applications and book applications for grants and everything like that. And the other thing, of course, is that because of the divestment that I've suffered under this state, both reputationally and financially, I can't access money. So the court knows when they force me to go and prostitute myself and ask for money, that they know that also that, I've explained to the court that, there's online harassment, massive online harassment, things like that, like literally packs of people that almost paid to attack the case and attack you. And I can't, so it's just a joke, like if you read my arguments, that New Zealand is under attack. We're being poisoned and stolen from. It's very difficult also for me to record these videos at the moment because of the attacks on my brain. So, I should be resting my brain. I mean, honestly, it's impossible from every angle. Anyway, regardless, please donate if you want to finance a case against like the most deadly cabal in the world who are destroying this country. Please donate to help my case so that in 10 days my 2 cases continue in court. Voila. There's my prostitution beg for money that I'm forced to do by the court, forced to violate my privacy and tell you all that I have no money, and thus I've explained why. Because this is an evil, evil fucking country doing an evil, evil fucking crime, and unless we stop them, I'm not the only one who's going to be divested. Every single person is going to be sick and dying from these chemicals. We're going to have no public property. When everyone's transferred from the toxic, toxic countryside into the city, it's not going to be a way of life that we recognise or have any affinity to. You know, they're killing all of nature right now. That includes us.